Have you ever noticed your body doing things you just couldn't explain? Maybe it was a change in appetite, a new feeling of tiredness, or a sense that something inside you was shifting. As we age, our bodies begin speaking to us in new ways. Some of these messages are gentle, even harmless, but others are louder, carrying meanings we may not want to hear. What many people don't realize is that our bodies can reveal signs when life is entering its final chapter. These are not the ordinary aches you feel after gardening, or the fatigue after walking through Walmart. They are more specific, clear signals that doctors and caregivers at places like the Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins often recognize as markers that the body is preparing for the end. Today, we're going to walk together through 7 of these signs. And as we do, I want you to reflect, not just on your own experiences, but on the lives of people you've loved. Maybe a parent, a friend from church, or a neighbor down the street. This isn't about fear, it's about clarity. By the end of this video, you won't just know what these signals look like. You'll also have the wisdom to meet them with strength, acceptance, and grace. These signs are not meant to strip away your hope. Instead, they remind us of the preciousness of the days we have left. Sign 1. Rapid and unexplained weight loss. One of the clearest signals that the body may be nearing its final stage is rapid, unexplained weight loss. It's not the kind that happens when you've decided to eat fewer desserts or when your doctor encouraged you to walk each morning. No, this is weight loss that sneaks in, unexpected, uninvited, and unsettling. Imagine an older gentleman, let's call him Frank, who spent his retirement years in Ohio enjoying Sunday barbecues and trips to the local diner. One spring, his daughter noticed his pants hanging loose, his favorite belt needing a new notch, and friends at church whispering, "Frank looks so much thinner." But Frank hadn't changed a thing in his routine. This kind of sudden loss happens because the body is no longer processing nutrients as it once did. The digestive system slows. Cells can't absorb what they need. Sometimes, illnesses like liver failure or cancer silently erode the body's ability to sustain itself. And often, it comes hand in hand with a fading appetite. The apple pie that once made your mouth water now tastes flat. The chili you looked forward to each Sunday suddenly feels too heavy. Even 2 bites may leave you full. Families watching this transformation often feel helpless. They want to encourage, to insist, just eat a little more. But the truth is, this isn't about willpower. It isn't stubbornness. It's the body shifting its energy away from growth and strength toward preservation. In these moments, compassion is the most powerful medicine. Instead of pushing another plate of food, sit down with your loved one. Share a story from the past. Hold their hand as they sip warm tea. Recognize that what matters most now is not calories, but comfort, presence, and love. Sign 2. Persistent and extreme fatigue. We all know what it feels like to be tired. Maybe after mowing the lawn, or after spending a long afternoon with the grandkids. Usually, a nap, a good night's sleep, or a quiet Sunday afternoon restores our energy. But the fatigue that signals the closing chapters of life is something altogether different. This is not ordinary tiredness. It is exhaustion that lives deep in the bones. Imagine waking up and feeling as if you'd already run a marathon. For some, even walking across the living room feels impossible. For others, sitting upright at the dinner table feels like climbing a mountain. Take, for example, Margaret from Georgia. She was once the life of every gathering, always quick with a story or a laugh. But in her final year, she often drifted into sleep mid-sentence. Watching her beloved Braves on television, she'd nod off after the first inning. Family visits that once brought her joy now left her drained after only a few minutes. This level of fatigue happens because the body is redirecting what little energy it has left. The heart may be struggling to pump blood. The lungs may no longer deliver enough oxygen. Muscles are starved of the strength they once held. And so, the body saves its remaining energy for only the most essential tasks: breathing, circulation, and keeping the heart alive. You'll also notice more sleeping. Long stretches of rest during the day, brief periods of waking, and then drifting quickly back into slumber. At night, restlessness may increase, while the daylight hours bring constant drowsiness and fatigue touches the mind. 2. Clear thinking becomes foggy. Quick wit slows. Conversations trail off. Not because the person doesn't care, but because it takes an immense effort just to remain awake and present. Sign 3. Noticeable changes in breathing. Breathing is one of the most obvious indicators when life is nearing its close. It is a rhythm we rarely notice in our youth, but in the final stages of life, it often changes dramatically. Some people experience shortness of breath even while sitting still. Others have long pauses between breaths, almost as if the body forgets what to do. Sometimes, breathing becomes shallow for long periods, followed by sudden deep gasps. Family members may also hear a rattling or gurgling sound, commonly called the death rattle. It happens when throat muscles weaken and can no longer clear away saliva or fluid. To loved ones, it can sound frightening, but in truth, it is not always painful for the person experiencing it. Let me tell you about Joseph, a retired teacher from Texas. In his last months, his daughter noticed his lips turning bluish, his fingertips cool to the touch. His breaths became uneven, sometimes shallow, sometimes labored. Sitting beside him, she realized these changes weren't random. They were signs of his body working hard with what little strength remained. Physically, these shifts happen because oxygen levels in the blood begin to fall. While carbon dioxide builds up, the lungs and heart no longer have the capacity they once did. Circulation focuses on the vital core, leaving the hands and feet cooler. In these moments, comfort is everything. A calm environment, soft words, or gentle music can bring peace. Holding a hand or whispering a prayer can do more than any medicine. For families, the challenge is not to panic, but to recognize this as part of the body's natural journey. Sign 4. Withdrawal from social interaction. Perhaps one of the most emotional signs is when a person begins withdrawing from those they love. Someone who once thrived on Sunday lunches at Cracker Barrel or phone calls with grandchildren in Chicago may now prefer silence or solitude. It is easy to misinterpret this as rejection, but in reality, it is the body and spirit conserving energy, talking, listening, even smiling. These small actions demand more than we realize, and in the closing stages of life, the body no longer has that energy to spare. Think of Eleanor, a grandmother in Pennsylvania who once hosted every holiday dinner. In her later months, she often asked her family to gather without her. She chose to remain in her room, listening quietly from her chair, instead of sitting at the crowded table. Her family at first felt hurt, wondering if she didn't want to be with them. But in truth, Eleanor was not rejecting them. She was simply conserving her strength. Withdrawal can also mean letting go of hobbies. The crossword puzzle that once kept the mind sharp may sit untouched. The garden outside, once a source of pride, no longer calls. Instead, there is a turning inward, a quiet focus on rest, reflection, and preparation for loved ones. This change is deeply difficult. It can feel like losing someone before they're gone. But the most powerful gift we can give in this season is presence, a gentle hand to hold, sitting together in silence, or simply being near. Sometimes the greatest comfort comes not from words, but from quiet companionship. Sign 5. Significant decline in appetite and thirst. Food is more than nourishment. For many of us, it's tied to memory, family, and tradition. Think about Thanksgiving dinner with turkey, stuffing, and pumpkin pie. Think about Sunday morning pancakes or a slice of apple pie at a diner on Route 66. Food is culture, comfort, and connection. That's why it can be so unsettling when, near the end of life, hunger and thirst simply fade away. Meals go unfinished. Water is refused. Even a favorite dish loses its appeal. Families often feel guilty in these moments. Believing their loved one is giving up, they plead, "Please eat something. Please drink just a little." But the truth is, this is not a matter of willpower. It is biology. As the body begins shutting down, digestion is no longer a priority, energy is conserved, organs focus only on survival. Forcing food or water at this stage may actually cause discomfort, choking, bloating, or nausea. Take Harold, a retired firefighter in New York, for most of his life. Harold had a hearty appetite, but in his final months, even the smell of his favorite clam chowder brought no interest. Instead of pushing meals on him, his daughter found comfort in offering small gestures, moistening his lips with a cool cloth, giving him ice chips, or sharing a single spoonful of pudding. The lesson here is profound at this stage. Food is no longer about sustaining life. It is about comfort and presence. A shared cup of tea, even if barely sipped, can mean more than a plate of food. What matters most is not the calories consumed, but the love shared around the table. Sign 6. Noticeable changes in skin and circulation. The skin is often called the body's largest organ, and near the end of life, it becomes a visible canvas of change. Circulation slows, blood flow focuses on the vital organs, and the skin reveals what's happening beneath the surface. You may notice bluish or purplish patches, mottling, or blotchy areas on the hands, feet, knees, and elbows. The skin may grow thinner, more fragile, bruising easily at the slightest touch. To families, these changes can feel shocking, as though the body is betraying itself. But in truth, they are part of the natural process. Consider Ruth, a grandmother in Arizona. She loves sitting on her porch watching desert sunsets in her final weeks. Her daughter noticed the mottling on her legs and the coolness in her hands. It was heartbreaking to see, but instead of panicking, the family learned to respond with warmth, soft blankets, cozy socks, gentle lotion. These small acts restored dignity, wrapping Ruth not only in physical warmth, but also in love. For those witnessing these changes, it's important to remember, this is not neglect, not something gone wrong. It is simply the body's way of slowing down. The skin speaks the truth, even when words are no longer possible, and through touch, gentle, tender, compassionate, we can remind our loved ones that they are still cared for, still cherished, still seen. Sign 7. Withdrawal and decreased awareness. Perhaps the most profound sign of all is withdrawal from the world itself. Responses become slower. Eyes close more often. Recognition of familiar faces may fade. Time is spent drifting between sleep and wakefulness, sometimes more in dreams than in reality. Families often describe moments where their loved one seems to see or speak to people who are no longer living. A mother, a friend, even a child long gone. Hospice workers often remind us, this is not delusion. It is the mind and spirit preparing for the journey beyond. Take George, a veteran from Kentucky, in his final days. He often whispered to his wife that he saw his old army buddies waiting for him, though she knew they had passed years ago. She found peace in his words. She realized he was not afraid. He was simply preparing to walk toward them. For caregivers and families, this stage can be bittersweet. Communication dwindles, but presence becomes more powerful than ever. Sitting quietly, holding a hand, playing soft music, whispering words of love. These gestures mean more than conversations ever could. It is important to understand this withdrawal is not about forgetting or rejecting those left behind. It is about turning inward, focusing on the journey of the spirit, and in those quiet hours, love is felt most deeply, not through words but through touch, closeness, and peace. Final thought. When we step back and look at these 7 signs together, they create a picture, not of despair, but of understanding. Each change, from weight loss to social withdrawal, is part of the natural process of life drawing to a close. These signs are not meant to frighten us. They are meant to prepare us, to give us wisdom, to help us recognize what is happening, so that instead of fear, we can bring compassion instead of confusion. We can bring clarity for those who are aging now. Recognizing these signs in advance gives us power. It reminds us to cherish our health while we have it, to mend relationships before it's too late, to spend less time worrying about small frustrations and more time enjoying the company of those we love. Death is not the opposite of life, it is part of it. And when we face it with courage and compassion, we honor the entire journey, from beginning to end. So if these words have touched you, let them remind you. Every day is a gift. Every conversation matters. Every embrace counts. Let us choose to live with awareness, so that when our time comes, we can face it with dignity, peace, and love.